All right, this is Tim Rogers from Dodgers 2080. I have with me a special guest. She kind of does a lot of the things behind the scenes with the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes. I guess it's an intern, but it's a little more than that. She does a lot of things with the organization, and her name is Sarah Miller. Sarah, welcome to our little podcast.
Hi there. Thank you for having me on today.
All right, so actually we can keep the microphone right here, fortunately. It's actually paid a little bit for it. So as you look through the season and what your expectations with coming in as an intern, and now what has your role really evolved into?
My role kind of started out as more of a public relations setting, and so as the season has progressed, it's become more of a assistance with broadcast. That's kind of my primary thing. And coming into the season, I didn't have any expectations, but now we have that routine set, and so I would definitely say broadcast assistance is my main thing here. Okay,
now you are still attending school at some little school in Ohio, Ohio State, is that what they call it? Or
That's what they call it.
Or is it something else? It starts with a T-H-E. So you just told me you were finishing up and you're going to be done in December. What is your major?
I am a communication analysis and engagement major at Ohio State, and I am minoring in psychology. So
that's actually very good because you're dealing with people that are around here, ball players, bosses, bloggers, all those types of people, and relief pitchers, which they're a special breed themselves, and especially left-handers. So dealing with that and going, okay, well, I'm trying to finish up here in college. Now, what do you plan on doing after college?
So my end goal for quite a while now has been to be a baseball play-by-play broadcaster. And I mean, it's just obviously such a competitive field, but I find it so rewarding, and I just really hope that that's where I can end up one day as far as career goals and whatnot. That's just where I want to be. Okay.
Now, I saw a picture on Instagram this morning, I think it was, with you saying you're by yourself, you got a computer, and it looks like a microphone or something like that. And it says, I'm going to be spending the 3 hours by myself. Now, what were you doing?
So last night was actually my first mock broadcast, and so what that consisted of was me literally sitting in a suite, talking to myself about baseball, calling the game play-by-play for about 3 hours. So it was really interesting, and it went very smooth, surprisingly.
Did you record it?
I did record it. I have the footage on my computer now. Is anyone going to ever listen to it? That's a good question. We'll see.
My first problem with doing these types of videos is I don't even like listening or watching myself, so it's rough. So you did that, and now you're going to do that again tonight?
Not tonight, per se. I will be focusing on our social media stuff, but I do plan on mock broadcasting a little bit more as the season continues, and kind of getting that consistency down, getting those reps in, as my boss always likes to say, and just getting more familiar with what goes into it and finding myself as a voice, as a broadcaster.
Now, your boss is who?
Mike Linskog, our voice of the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes. He is so great.
Yeah, and Mike's been great to all of us in the media, as he helps us to get media passes and helped a lot with the whole Julio Urias rehab assignment on Sunday, which was awesome, and Sarah helped a lot with that too. So she got her question in and everything like that. And so I grew up, I'm way older than you are, and I've seen a lot of announcers, listened to a lot of announcers. Do you have a favorite right now?
I think my two favorites are actually, I don't want to be biased, but they are Dodgers announcers. And so Vin Scully was someone that I listened to every single day growing up. He was just a staple in my household. It was always a big family-oriented situation. Vin's calling the game, let's watch the Dodgers.
Awesome.
And so beyond that, Joe Davis is a personal favorite of mine. I'm really admirable of his sense of broadcasting and just how he can tell a story, like make a baseball game a story. And so he's become one of my favorites, just as I've kind of adjusted to him after the transition from Vin. So don't want to be biased, but those two are definitely my favorite broadcasters.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to make this about me, but Vin is obviously, I don't even think it's subjective. I think it's objective. He's the greatest of all time.
Absolutely.
And I look at Joe, and Joe has now become a World Series announcer.
Exactly.
And actually, I have a good relationship with Joseph. If people were to go Google Joe Davis, Oral Hershiser sweater, you'll see some stuff. We established a connection through a ugly sweater that Oral Hershiser had in a parade. Go look that up. And Joe's a good guy. He's a legit good human, and he's obviously really good at what he does. And I do know this. He was the king of mock broadcasting. And if you look at what he did a lot of that type of stuff. And okay, so let's go back a little bit. Now, you talked about sitting at home listening to Vin Scully. So it doesn't sound like you grew up in Ohio to be a Buckeye. You grew up Southern California, I'm assuming?
I did. I grew up right here in Rancho Cucamonga.
Rancho Cucamonga. Okay, did you ever go to Quakes games when you were growing up at all?
I did tons of Quakes games. It was always a staple in my family. Again, I mean, just with my brothers, my sister, my mom, my dad, we always came here to see games. Awesome. And then at one point we were like season ticket holders for a couple years, and so it just has always been a big part of my life.
So that's the cool stuff, right? You go and you're doing all this stuff. Growing up, and you're probably getting autographs and going here and going there and seeing players. Who knows? Maybe you saw Mike Trout when they were an Angels organization to see those guys. And now you're going, well, you do stuff, don't you? You interview players, right?
I sure do.
So this season, you're obviously new this season, and so you've interviewed. Who have you interviewed so far?
Oh my goodness, I have interviewed probably close to all of the guys on our roster right now, and the interviews definitely range from different types, but as far as dugout interviews go, I've interviewed Liam Doolin, Kyle Nevin. I am going to interview Peyton Martin today. Got the chance to talk to Jose Azara, Dayton Dooney, Jesus Scalise. So just so many of those really good in-depth dugout interviews have occurred so far this year. Yeah,
and one of the Sarah has learned, and she probably already knew this growing up around here. The Dodgers have, in my opinion, just super high quality human beings.
Absolutely.
They're just really good people, and they're you can go and look at some of the interviews that are on our channel, and you can go, wow, and they're just legitimate nice guys. They don't always want to get interviewed because they might be shy, or well, they're pitching, or they have a bad day. If you have a bad day, don't ask them, right? I mean, so tell us more about why Ohio State? Why not San Diego State or UCLA? Tell us about your path to Ohio State.
So that's a really good question. As far as choosing a college, I was really torn between Notre Dame and Ohio State. I just didn't really find myself interested in going to school close to home per se.
Okay.
And so learning about Ohio State's program, specifically their communication degree, it's ranked number 2 in the world.
Oh wow.
As of a few years ago, and just getting the chance to get in there, and I kind of had to just get that comparison between them and Notre Dame, and just Ohio State seemed like the right option for me. It seemed like a great area to be, and made it happen. So I'm super grateful that I got to make it work.
Oh, very, very cool. And then you'll be done in December, and you don't ever have to go back to Ohio again. Or like the song says, I went back to Ohio, but my city was gone. The Pretenders. It's old. Oh, getting some love from Cody. So even looking further about your season, starting, you said you started as kind of just, hey, a little bit of PR, and now I'm doing a lot of announcing. Now you do, how much, when something pops up on the Instagram or Twitter, how many times is that, percentage-wise, how many times is that you? that's done that?
So as far as Instagram goes, I've worked a lot on indirect content. So I'm not the
Okay.
one putting out Instagram content, but a lot of like interviews and stuff that is kind of just determined by higher management. But as far as Twitter, I am the person behind live tweets of every game, and
Very
so
cool.
sometimes I'll throw out pictures of the ballpark before the game, stuff like that. But mainly my social media priority is live tweeting the game and kind of just getting out those big numbers. You know, this is a 400-foot homer, let them know, and
Right.
just get that engagement up and get fans excited about what's going on with their Quakes this year.
Yeah, no, so there's really no camera wells here, so usually Sarah and I and a few others are off in a corner of the dugout. But I see her, she got her scoreboard or scorecard, and so she's going through that and keeping track of the game very closely while, you know, we try not, well, we bother her probably a lot.
No way.
Because we're just there to shoot video and audio, or video and photography. So what else do you do? I mean, you do write-ups, right? I've seen some of your write-ups. So you're writing up some of the stuff that's on the website?
So I have done game stories as far as like after the game we will sit down in the booth and write a little bit of a recap and just kind of highlight, you know, if one of our pitchers is going to get a win, we'll highlight that. If someone hits a homer, just kind of give those stats out, you know, did someone steal a base? If so, which one was that? And then as far as other writing goes, we actually hand out a program here at Lone Mark Field to fans as they walk in. And so I get the chance to interview our players and then go ahead and transcribe them and put them all in a little booklet, which is super cool because it gives the fans the opportunity to learn more in depth about the people that they're seeing on our field. So it's just super cool to have that personable feeling.
Yeah, you know, one of the things I need to do on my channel, I need to go back to like 2018 when I started covering the Quakes and go, how many of those players made it to the major leagues? Because there's a lot. And so the players you see today with the Quakes, I'm going to guess at least a third of them will eventually, at a minimum, get to the major leagues.
Absolutely.
And so come out and see the Quakes. This is kind of an easy thing. If you're around, you got to try it. It took me years before I went to a minor league game myself, which for my shame, right? So let's see. What's something about yourself that, you know, that I don't know, that the people might want to be interested in, and, you know, as they start following you, and, you know, you can put out your Twitter, your Instagram, whatever you want. What are some things about you that are, just interesting about yourself?
So I think my main kind of aspect is that I didn't know what my path was going to be. Coming out of high school, I was graduating in COVID times, and things were just really uncertain in the world. And
Sorry.
so, yeah, it was rough. And so I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I started college going on the pharmacy route, and it was going smoothly. And then I just kind of thought to myself one day, like, I can't see this for me long term. I figured out that sports was something that I found to be my calling, and so it just was an interesting journey trying to figure out how to navigate as a woman in sports.
Right.
And so that was just kind of an uncertainty in my path, but just stuff like that. Like I feel like so many people come out with a clear plan, but it doesn't always work out the way you think it will. So I'm just a very firm believer in things happening for a reason, and just kind of stick by that just in pretty much everything I do.
Yeah, speaking of women in sports, so do you have like a role model that you're following? Just to go, I mean, you talked about Joe and Vin, but is there some women out there that you're going, you know, I want to learn from them?
I would say as far as women in sports, I've always seen Erin Andrews as an on-field reporter growing up, and football's particularly one of my interests as well. And so seeing her, she's always been a big role model to me. Now the Dodgers have Jessica Mendoza on their team, and so it's been great watching her and seeing her path kind of evolve with the Dodgers organization as well. And so I would say those two women are the main people that I look up to in my field, and I just really do admire them.
Very cool. Okay. I think let's wrap up on that. I think it's very cool that you know, are joining us for our podcast. A little different thing. We got Peyton Martin coming around here, getting ready to get rolling. He can come on and join us if he wants, but Yeah, so Sarah, we appreciate you coming on, and we will keep track of you. Do you want to give out your Instagram or?
Sure thing. My Instagram is Sarah Page. It's SarahPaigee. And that's just kind of where everything from my life goes, not specific to sports at all.
Okay, very cool. So follow her on Instagram. You heard it, and I also will. Usually I'll shove her stuff into a story or something like that from our Dodgers 2080. So thank you very much, Sarah, and we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.